a story about these monks that I've been reading about, these yogis in India who actually learned how to, it's mind over matter. They learned how to control their body systems. They could pierce themselves without bleeding. They could, walk on nails. You've heard about all that kind of stuff. But a lot of things, including the Tibetans who, one of their tests, for example, when they're passing a certain level of their study, their practice, Tibet is freezing cold. One of their tests on a particular level was to take a wet blanket, basically in a loincloth, and go outside, put the wet blanket around them in the snow, in the cold, and dry the blanket with their body heat. It was so cold that the blanket would actually freeze before it would start drying. And that was so, because I've been studying human potential forever. I've always been fascinated by it, and holistic health and healing and stuff. And so I brought this information and all this stuff to the producers and the writers, and Ken, and I said, we should really do a story about this. And this is incredible, We're talking about being bionic and physically powerful, but we can do things without that. And if anybody knows about Qigong, it's moving energy with your consciousness, with your mind. So a Qigong master can take down any Taekwondo or anybody else who requires physical contact to have Qigong, you can't even get to them because the energy will actually push your body away, and you can learn to use it properly. And I was just fascinated by all of that. We are on our own without all this other stuff. So I said, we gotta do that. And he looked at me and he goes, who's gonna believe this? Maybe. Like, wait a minute, back up, guys. Think about what you said, okay? You want to try giving me another response? And then, of course, everybody laughed and they realized. And so they struggled and struggled with it. And how do we do this? And I think had I come in and just not said, this is real, and said, but because I was saying this is a real thing, and we were doing above real, therefore somehow it gave license. I said, so we don't have to say it's real. We don't say this isn't real. We don't say, we're science fiction, science/reality, because we aren't from another planet. We're not another species. We're a human being with extra technical whatever. So anyway, we had these big, long philosophical conversations, and finally, and I had been resisting the Bigfoot and the fembot thing. They wanted me to get in a so what I ended up doing was trading. I had to trade those two shows for my what ended up being called biofeedback, because they couldn't figure out how to fit it in, how to write it. We were working on such pace. It was so difficult to get these shows done and written and shot, because we were booked in the same number of days that Marcus Welby was, which was 4 people at most standing around in a camera here and a camera there next. We had all this other stuff to do. So the writers also, because we were constantly pushing for, let's not solve it with violence. Well, that means you have to think harder, and as you mentioned, the storylines were unique, and they had so much more to them because they were being forced to think outside the box. And so this one really had them baffled. And eventually they came up with the idea of biofeedback, which was something that was that they could relate to. It was a brand new process in the 70s. It had just been developed over at the Mayo Clinic. And so that was how they finally were able to, justify within their own mind how they could put it in a story, because they turned it into the science research of it. And so I don't remember what you asked me, but it took a long time to answer it, but that was one of my very favorite. I don't know what.
Do you have a favorite episode, or one that kind of
unique,
blew you away when you read the script?
I liked one where
Lindsay's kidnapped. And I have to go find her. And I arrived with about 10 guys from the OSI. And just then, a whole flock of sheep crossed the road. And
that's where
well, that wasn't the point. I said, get the flock out of here. and when Kenny said that we're going to do that, he said, we got a great idea here. He was like, get the flock out of here. Why, I said, I don't think Goldman would say that, you see. And he'd say, well, just try it both ways, and you know which one he used. But that was a way of kind of, they play around a bit with dialogue, and as Lindsay was saying, they have to make it their own. You know, and that's a problem kind of that went on in the making of the Bionic movement. And I always admire, I say again, that we had new avenues that was unlike the man entirely. And it was extremely successful, as long as it was on the air. Extremely successful, and more so nowadays, because nowadays it's proved so many things that were untrue.